Hey everybody, Steve from the Pinball Room. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about going through and designing the primary display for our pinball machine. That nice big LCD display or DMD. You can use whatever type of display you want to use. I'm going through and I'm basically, if you've been noticing in my other videos, I'm basically mimicking the stern spike to back box. I've got a shorter translight above it and I've got a little bit taller area. In fact, I purchased that exact same speaker grill from Pinball Life, a replacement for the stern spike speaker grill and LCD display cutout. And I've got the acrylic in there to protect the screen. I found I think it's about a 15-inch is what they call it display. That's 1920 by 1080 pixels is the dimensions. And we've got speakers on the other side we talked about that are going to be in there. And so, I mean, really, when you think about pinball, like look at the ones behind me here, right? Like they all have different types of displays. We've got some DMDs. We've got the stern spike. We've got the old school for Twilight Zone and for Getaway. And I like them in color, so I've swapped out the Getaway and the Simpsons to be color. I have yet to get around and really kind of do the full work of my Twilight Zone, so it's sitting there waiting for its color display. And now with modern technology, I got to have a large LCD display. That's what I want. It's going to be nice. Now at the same time, I mean, I know exactly what George Gomez was talking about when he said they kind of held off on a long time to get a big LCD display inside their machine because it was making a huge commitment. Well, you get that big display, you got to put something on it, and it's got to be something interesting. So they have to get a whole extra animation and artistic department being able to crank out content for that display, and it's a lot of work. And I'm realizing that because I'm trying to go through and create my own display. I'm like, this is kind of a lot of work. What am I going to do? Am I going to go through and have a bunch of different animations and cut sequences and footage and I mean, I want to do all that, but I'm not an animator. I'm not really an artist or an illustrator. And so here's what I've decided. I think is going to work for me is just kind of like the 80-20 rule, or 20-80 rule. I don't know. It's like, keep it simple. I guess that's probably really the rule, right? The whole KISS principle, right? Just keep it simple. Stupid Steve. Keep it simple and, do what you can when you can. I was having so many problems with the CNC machine that I was using in the makerspace to cut out my whitewood number 7. That I eventually at one point just kind of got frustrated. Said, you know what else can I work on? I will go through and work on the artwork for my display. Now I'm using the Mission Pinball framework for the software, and that's going to dictate a lot of how we go about creating content for that large display. Because MPF has a very specific way that it handles all the audio and all the visuals for your pinball machine. And it's actually pretty straightforward, and there's actually really good documentation. Brian Madden, man, shout out to Brian Madden. He's been going through and doing so much on creating great tutorials and documentation, both for the FAST hardware platform that he's working with that group, but also he's the originator of MPF, and he's done a lot. He did, and he's doing a lot of work now to make sure that we have really good documentation to how to go about using MPF and how to create what we call slides in the world of MPF, Mission Pinball Framework. So that's what we're going to talk about. Got a couple of fun things that I did along the way, a little diversion we'll take, but let's just jump right into it. I'm going to go through and cut over to my screen to talk about a lot of what I've got going on there, okay? Okay, so when I go through and think about the display that I want to have for my pinball machine, and I think this makes sense, I think we'd all kind of feel the same way, right? You're going to want something that goes along with what you have for your cabinet artwork and for your playfield artwork. You don't want it to feel super disjointed, right? Like, I've got all these reds and greens on the side of my cabinet, my display is all blues and purples. I mean, it's all subjective, right? So I shouldn't be throwing out colors because there's lots of different ways that colors can be made to work together, right? I'm sure Christopher Franchi or Zombie Yeti, if anybody else is watching this, who's an actual artist, they're going to turn it off and say this guy's a moron. So let me back up. For me, at least, I would like a display that feels like it's part of an overall thought out like art package, right? That there's a plan behind my cabinet artwork, my playfield artwork, and my display content, right? It's animations and artwork. So for me, if you remember, I come up with a set of artwork that was based off of the album art for Celebration Day. And I've gone through and I've taken that and I've turned it into a translite. I've got artwork for the back box panel, for the sides of the back box, and for the sides of the cabinet, and for the front of the cabinet as well. And it's less complex than most modern pinball machines, or pretty much any pinball machine, where right now I've got my translite being basically almost identical to my side artwork. And I've actually been thinking I might iterate on that a little bit, especially after what I started playing around with here recently. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. So here's the translite artwork that I had, right? And I was like, okay, what can I create for the display that feels like it goes along with this? I don't want to be like an exact copy of this, and I need space. This is kind of busy in the middle of it, right? But I need a way to be able to have room for the player scores, the player, the ball count, any information about the mode going on, what mode you're in, kind of a way to echo callouts right, be able to flash jackpot, shoot the ramp, and things like that. So I'm not an artist, and so I was like, all right, what am I going to come up with? I should be able to come up with something, though. Well, we live in this fascinating day and age, and I tell you, I think another couple of years, this video is going to be like so obvious and just like overdone. But I turned to AI. So AI has been all the rage the last little while. I don't know if you guys have heard much about it. I'm sure you have. ChatGPT and OpenAI and things like that. There's a lot going on. There is so much popping up. Some of this kind of overlaps with my day job as a user experience designer, and my whole industry has been, I think, very interested and anxious and excited to see what's going on, because like now you can like go through and use a prompt and tell an app to, hey, create me a website that's, you know, got this, and bam, it'll go through and just spit it out to you in a matter of seconds. So I decided to play around with one of those tools called Midjourney. There's a bunch of other ones popping up. That's the one that I came across at the time, and it's got an engine that has been an algorithm, rather, I guess, right? That's been trained across 5 billion images from Google. It's a really cool tool. And what I did, I took my Translite image and I uploaded it, I fed it in, and I said, hey, create me an image that has a stage and like a scoreboard display that will show like team names and their scoring, but like kind of like use this as like a basis for it, right? And I came up with some rather interesting options. Let me go through and just kind of show you everything that it created. I went through and played around with it, I don't know, half dozen times or more. All right, and these are the things it came up with. So, okay. Actually, let me start back before. So I started saying, you know, give me things that are like pinball display and, you know, retro and whatever. And before I even gave it my image, I said, you know, like greens and yellows, and it came up with some things here, kind of arcade looking. And I said, you know, like a radio transmitter, radio receiver with control panels and dials, and got some very retro looking things here. Whenever I tried to use the word pinball, it didn't seem to have a clue what was going on. It struggled so hard. It never came up with anything that really looked like pinball. This one at the bottom right is the closest thing. We got mostly just like arcade looking things going on. So I don't feel like it really knows what a pinball machine is. It did not have much that it trained on around pinball, or at least I could not come up with prompts that made it work. Here's another one that was just like, you know, like radio receiver, control panel with knobs and dials, and these are a little heavy on the controls and very light on the displays. Like I could take this one here, the bottom left, and like, you know, put like an image here inside this, but it'd be very small compared to what the rest of it would have going on. So, I mean, fun things. Here's another like retro, you know, stadium display with like digital display for scores and stuff, green and yellow, different items. Nothing that was really hitting the mark, you know, grungy, retro, control panel, radio thing. And then futuristic, you know, sci-fi, modern. This one got some really cool stuff. I don't know what I would use it for, but it looks awesome. This one was kind of cool. This is when I started feeding in my image with my colors, and it started using more of those reds and greens and yellows and teals and some interesting things. Again, if this was like a Journey pinball machine or video game, that would maybe work. Some interesting different things going on here. We iterated on a couple of these for a little while, and then I changed to a prompt saying, show me a scene with like a concert stage with a big, large stadium display, scoreboard. And here we started to get a lot more interesting things that I was like, this is kind of inspiring. Like, look at that top left one. I'm going to have a stage on my pinball machine, right? So we got like a little crowd down here. We can maybe crop in on that. We've got the stage lights up top, and we got this giant big display that everyone's looking at, which could have the scores and things on it, right? We got some fun different little patterns. There's one over here, a little heavy on the green, but I was liking the direction we were going here. We iterated on that top left one a little bit. It gave me a few more variations. Kind of similar, but again, I don't know, fun ideas. This one was iterating on that one that was kind of green in the top right. A couple options there. But again, this is all generated in a matter of just moments by the machine. Then I tried to say, again, you know, Led Zeppelin, retro Led Zeppelin without my image. And here's some interesting things. This is kind of fun and different. I think we could work with some of this. A few of them are kind of busy, I think. This one, top left one, looks like a Jersey Jack pinball machine display right there. There's like so many messages and things going on. I tease. I jest. I feel their displays are way too busy. I have a hard time knowing what to look at and what's going on where. Then we came across this set here, and it was more like a laptop display with like a concert and things going on. And this one here at the top right, I had to iterate on that a little bit. We came up with some different things. This one's kind of got like stadium lights in it. So that's kind of the cityscape behind it, much more in line with like the artwork I had originally, right? So we got a couple different versions of that. And this top right one up here is the one that I ended up really kind of liking the most and decided to go with. I like kind of this bezel that's around it. And so I took that and create my own bezel. I isolated everything else out of it and basically came up with like this background, okay, that consists of part of the image. So I went through and isolated this part out of the image. Here's the reference image up above, okay. I isolated this out of it. I went through and I put a frame around the edge. That's kind of fun and colorful. Kind of makes it feel like you're looking inside like an old screen with like a bezel on it, right? I added this. I added some colors and some fades that kind of matched it. I added kind of a fun like repeating grid that kind of gives it a little more kind of this retro kind of grungy look to it, And that was kind of my basic background. And then from there, I moved it around, added in some fonts, and there we go. This is my attract slide that will play when the machine starts up and you're sitting there waiting for you to push the start button to start a game. It'll cycle through this and then a screen that shows the last game and what the score was, kind of cycle back and forth. I've also got a screen that just kind of has like my logo. That's like a welcome screen, a very startup screen. So again, I broke it down to a basic kind of like background element. I built a frame around it, and then I started putting the content inside the center. So, and that's what you're going to need to look at for Mission Pinball Framework. You're going to want to go through and have different slides. Think of it as like a PowerPoint or like a Google slide deck, right? Or Keynote or whatever you use. But the idea is you can only ever have one thing on the screen at a time. Now there could be multiple elements within that you can control and like animate around. So you can have like one screen, for example, let's show like this attract screen, right? I will only show one slide at a time. So I'm going to be able to show my attract slide, but I can also cycle through and have it rotate between slides on a timed interval, right? However often you want it to. Or as different modes happen in your game, you can swap into different slides. But you're going to want each individual slide. Now these two are almost identical. They have the same background. All I'm really changing is just the text on top, right? And so I bring in one slide and I define this text. I want it to say Led Zeppelin. I want it to be using this font in this color at this size. And then you give it coordinates on the screen and I want it to show up in this part of the screen. And it all does a X, Y coordinate system. Bottom left is 0, 0. Top right, for me, is going to be like 1920 and 1080. That's going to be the other extreme. And so based on that, you can say, okay, where do I want my text to be aligned? You put in an X value and a Y value, and it'll move it to there. And I kind of had to play around with it a little bit until I could get it. Okay, that's exactly where I want it, just like in my image inside my design software I used, right? Then I start going through MPF, loading up that slide. I see it, I check it. Oh, it's not quite center. Okay, let me fix that. Oh, it's a little too high. I'll adjust it down. I did a little bit of trial and error here and there. It probably would have been more precise, but I'm designing for a 1920 by 1080 screen, but then I'm previewing it on my Mac laptop, which is not that resolution. And so MPF knows it's not quite the same, but it'll still go through and try to scale it up or down to make it kind of match and put like bars on the top and the bottom. So it's a pretty close representation, but still not exact to my display. But it should be good enough to test where when I put in my real display, it will fit exactly. And so things should be good. But I'll go through and do another round of double checking my alignments and everything just to make sure everything translates correctly. But from what I read in the docs, I believe it should be represented pretty equally here on my screen as well. All right, kind of jumping through a few different things for you here, right? Kind of jumping around. But I guess what I want to talk about was just like, your artwork can come from anywhere. I was using AI for it. That was fun, throwing in some different things. So I kind of got something like, oh, I like that idea. Let me kind of take a pieces out of that I like, get rid of the other stuff a little too cluttered, and kind of come up with something that worked for me. So that was a fun route to go down. Didn't cost me anything. I was playing around with the free trial of Midjourney and got a number of things created for free. And then really, again, it's all about these slides. So far, I've got about a dozen core slides. So the very first is what I'm just calling like a welcome slide. is a slide that's going to show when your machine starts up before it goes into track mode. For me, with my build right now, it goes pretty quick. I'm actually going to find a way to maybe kind of delay it just a little bit so my logo's on there just a little bit longer, because like it shows up and immediately gets wiped away. But so maybe you don't even really need that initial welcome slide, but you're definitely going to want some attract slides for when the game's sitting there in a cycle waiting for someone to push start. So I've got like this welcome screen, Led Zeppelin, push the start button to begin. I've got the last game screen we talked about, right? So it kind of cycles back and forth between these like every 3 seconds, and you can control the timing. You control whether it, slides up, moves in from the right, from the left, if it just kind of dissolves in. There's all sorts of different like blending, fading options, right? You can do to move transition between slides. And then after you go through and you actually start the game, then we're going to go through, for me, we're going to go into song selection. So here we are now. We've got 4 players added and players 1 is up, and we're waiting for them to pick their song. So you can cycle through. I've got a font here that I found on the internet for like $10. I couldn't find a good free one, but I found this one for $10. It looks great. So song selection for me is really going to be how I start the game. You have to pick your song first, and we'll reuse this at the other stages in the game where it's time for you to pick a new song. So we've got song selection. After song selection, then we've got, what does this look like in normal play? So we're just playing a game. We've got a score. We've got a timer on the top left counting down how much time you got left in the song. I've just made up values here, right? In the very top center shows the name of the song you're playing. This is the mode you're in right now, your score. It also allows you then to go through and have room for, if I want to have like little helper slides come in, telling you, hey, shoot the right ramp. I can go through and show the progress for collecting the Led Zeppelin letters, right, where it's at. All different things like that you can go through and show. We got options for whether it's 3 players or 2 players or 4 players, how many people are playing a game. We can go through and show all those different options there. And then we got to go through and show like end screen. So ball end bonus, you've got a total bonus. We've got different ways we can be showing bonuses, the different types of bonuses, right? So total bonus. I made this background here with the Led Zeppelin images, just like repeated. So each one of these is a different slide. It's going to be pulling up, okay? And then we've got like a game over slide. Great, that can cycle through. We'll have one for jackpots. You can go through and say, jackpot, 50 million points. Or we can go through and we can say, super jackpot, 50 million points. So yeah, so those are the slides I've come up with. Obviously, I'm just kind of scratching the surface. There's a bunch more. I'm going to need one for every multi-ball starting, probably kind of like what the progress is during the multi-ball, what it looks like when you finish the multi-ball, for the different types of things you're collecting. So for skill shots, the different jackpots, right? I've got one for that. I got some simple ones there, but maybe there's different types I need to do. Showing when I go through and like lock the bonus like I talked about in my other video. I want to be able to have people like lock in their bonus. So what does that look like? So there you have it. That's kind of the approach I took, the way it's coming along. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts, and what you think. Am I missing? Am I forgetting something that needs to be thrown in here that I should be considering? Like, I'm trying to have it kind of be a little bit less is more, and not be trying to show like every status and keeping track of every little thing on the screen. Because how often are you really looking up? Right, you're playing the game. Other people need to see the score. You might want to look up and select your song and realize, oh, I've got a timer counting down, but. See, the other side of this is going to be all the audio callouts, which are really important in pinball, right? Because you're sitting there playing the game, you won't always see the screen. So not just seeing something that says shoot the right ramp, you need to hear somebody saying, ideally it'd be Robert Plant. I'm doing callouts for my machine, right? Saying shoot the right ramp and, jackpot, good job. And I don't know, 10 seconds left. Like, the timer's counting down. All those things you're going to need to know in the game. You're going to need to have an audio version of that as well, right? That we can be playing through. And I have not gotten to that part just yet. So I also plan on in here being able to go through and show video clips. And you'll be able to see the concert footage going on and things like that. But I don't know. We'll still have to figure all that part out. I have not started to play with actually loading in video assets and showing, displaying movie cuts and things like that. And there's so much more in the code here for us to jump into and figure out. So anyway, hopefully it gives you a little bit of an idea of how to go about creating your slides, a couple ideas on how you can think of maybe getting inspiration through AI or other things, right? To be looking around different places and see what type of things inspire you. You can grab an element from here, an element from there, start kind of slapping things together. Maybe hire a friend if you think this is just way too much for for your skill set. There's lots of people out there who I've seen offer help for me with my pinball machine. I've been really happy to see that. So yeah, there's lots of options for you out there. Just don't get discouraged. Keep it simple. Start with something that you feel like For me, it was nice to start with the overall artwork first and then come up with this. For you, maybe you'll start with your display first and then your cabinet artwork will come after the fact. Everybody goes about this in different orders using different tools. There is no one way to do it for sure. Definitely just take this as one more perspective, one more option you can explore. So hopefully it's helpful for you. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you hate it? Are these colors just like grossing them out? Are you getting tired of them? I haven't gotten tired of them yet. I think I'm liking the direction we're going with it, but I don't know. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on it too. Okay, guys, thanks so much. I've yapped on too long about this already, but thanks for coming along for the ride, and I'm excited to show you what else I've been working on in my next video. So again, we'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.